Hey y'all, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the Sensibly Cynical podcast. My name, of course, is Sean, and today I have a fantastic episode for you. Shortly, I will be joined by Neil of the GameCube Was Cool podcast. You know, he's one half of the dynamic duo over there, alongside his co-host Mike, who unfortunately could not be here for this interview, but it is awesome nonetheless. We document the fantastic video game console known as the GameCube. And with me on the line, he is one of the co-hosts of the GameCube Was Cool podcast. Neil, what's going on, man?
Hey, Sean, I'm good. Thanks for having me on the show today.
Yeah, man. Well, I didn't get both of you, but I'll take one.
Yeah, man. That's okay. Mike's busy, so I mean, like, hey, if one of us is free, we're gonna come on regardless. So thank you so much for taking the time to invite us out. This is cool. I'll speak on Mike's behalf. I feel like we've known each other a long time. We can probably talk for each other at this point.
We're going on 19 years since the GameCube debuted, so it's kind of a good time to bring you on, and I like to talk about, you know, how your podcast started. So go ahead and talk about the history.
Yeah, sure thing. I mean, you're right. The GameCube is it'll be 19 on November 18th, which is crazy to think. It came out in 2001 when we were young. Mike and I were young kids at the time, so... the history of the podcast, I mean, Mike and I, we go back almost 20 years at this point. We've been best friends since we were in elementary school, and we bonded over a whole bunch of things. Like, we were in sports together. We played baseball, hockey. Being from Toronto, Canada, you have to play hockey, of course. And then, like, obviously, right around that time, 2001, the GameCube had just come out. So he and I, we each got our GameCubes a little bit later. I think we were both around 2003, and we instantly bonded over that as well. So... we love games. Like, we got Nightfire, GoldenEye, 007 Nightfire. Is like just a fantastic multiplayer game that we still play to this day. For now, it's been 16 years we've had that. We both played games like Mario Party together at sleepovers. We would rent games from Blockbuster when that was a thing. We traded up games. Like, I would borrow Double Dash from him. He would borrow like Spider-Man games from me or something. And we played SpongeBob games because we were young. So we played those games like all the way through elementary school together. And we both went to high school together, and we both kind of took a bit of a hiatus from games in that time, right? So that was around from like 2007, so like around the time the Wii, the PS3, and the 360 came out. Mm-hmm. We kind of took a bit of a break from games, but we kept playing GameCube stuff. So like Mike had a Wii, which luckily the Wii was backwards compatible with GameCube, and it had the 4 controller ports. So I would go over to his place, and we would continue to play games like Nightfire and Smash and Double Dash. So like when everyone was playing Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, or whatever it was on Xbox, Left 4 Dead, we were at home playing Melee, which was funny. So I mean, later on in college and university, we both got into the modern stuff like PlayStation. We now have PlayStation 4s. Mike's got a pretty sick PC, so he plays that sometimes too. But then like we still, like, I started collecting for GameCube. I decided like, hey, this console we have like this history with, so I'm going to go back. I'm going to like go on eBay, go to thrift stores, go to used game stores and try and find some good deals and try and build up a GameCube collection. So I did that for a while, and I don't have like a ton of GameCube games. Like some collectors you see on Instagram, they've got massive collections, right? I might have like 50 GameCube games right now, like 2 consoles. It's a modest collection, but I feel like I have most of the good ones at this point. So then about, I guess it was around April, like March or April, around the time the pandemic actually started, Mike said like, hey man, we should probably like, maybe we should just start a podcast, like, because, you know, we both love this console. We both love games. Let's just see what it takes to start a podcast and what we can do. So we got together a few times digitally, of course. We had a few like Skype calls and just to talk over the phone about like creating a schedule and like what games there are. We found out there are like way more GameCube games than we ever thought. There's over 500 GameCube games. And then we just figured, okay, let's talk about each game. You know, some episodes will be one big game like Super Mario Sunshine. We've done 27 episodes now. This week, today actually launched the Spider-Man episode. So, yeah, it's going good so far. And, picking up some traction. The GameCube's got a pretty decent like cult following. So we figured might as well see who's out there and talk some GameCube for a few weeks or a few years.
The thing about it is you can always just say, hey, the GameCube was cool. You can branch it off to a different, console.
Yeah, like we did an episode, one of our earlier episodes was completely about the Dreamcast, which was a console from the same era, like 2000, same time around GameCube. And there were a bunch of Dreamcast ports that got moved over to GameCube because Sega obviously went not out of business, but they turned into a developer. So we did like an entire episode just on Dreamcast games that were on GameCube. And like that was just a fun thing to do. And that was kind of, like you said, like you can change it to doing anything was cool. So that probably is where the podcast will end up going for now, but who knows? I mean, we're only like 150 games in, so. So
I'm gonna put you on the spot here. What was your favorite like genre of game that they produced for that console?
My personal favorite from that era, that's really tough because that's the thing is that we found out that there's so many, but I absolutely love the Pikmin games from that era.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's only 2. It only counts as 2 games, but that's probably my favorite franchise from the GameCube era was Pikmin. I played them both, not when I was a kid. I played them more recently, like in the last 5 years. And I loved just playing as Olimar and the Pikmin and everything. But as a kid, honestly, like we played just we were young, right? So we played like SpongeBob games and party games. So like Mario Party comes to mind when I'm thinking about the GameCube going back to it as a kid.
Yeah, I know. I haven't had a chance to check it out, but like Metroid Prime, did you play that?
Yeah. Metroid Prime's fantastic. We just put out the Metroid episode last week, too. That is definitely objectively one of the best games of all time. Now, like, Metroid is not for everybody because it's not a shooter. It's not like Halo, but it's super pretty to look at. The graphics age very well. The gameplay is still sharp. The controls take some getting used to because it is an aged first-person shooter. But no, Metroid Prime is so good. Like, if you're into, like, an exploration game with a lot of backtracking and not a lot of story, definitely check out Metroid Prime. And that game is really cheap, too. Like, we go back and check out some of these games that aren't good, right? And they're maybe $300-$400, some of them, because, like, collectors are insane. But then, like, you see, like, these really good games, like Metroid Prime, or we covered Tony Hawk a few weeks ago, and these games are, like, $20 still for some reason. Like, the good games are cheap, which is weird.
Tony Hawk, man, don't get me started on that shit, man. I was a PlayStation, so I got a quick story about that. I had a PlayStation. And I used to play I think it was PS2, or maybe it was the original PlayStation. And I kid you not, man, they all blur together. But I remember one day, I literally was on the PlayStation 21 hours, the 24.
Jeez, that's crazy.
And I could not beat Tokyo.
Those games are hard, man. Like I jumped in on Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 on GameCube. That was one of my first memories of GameCube, and I picked up that game. I think that was the second game I bought for the system. And I played that game to death as well. I don't think I ever got to 21 hours in a single sitting, though. That's impressive. Did you pick up the remakes this year?
Oh, no. I'm just now getting back. I took a video game break. Like when I was back in my hometown of Titusville, we would always play like Halo tournaments and COD and stuff. And then when I got to college, games kind of became secondary to when's the club open, when's the bar open, like, you know what I mean? Like, where's the chicks at, It's like those questions came closer to me than, what time are we going to start the landline,
you gotta take priorities.
Yeah, like, when's the club open? And so I stopped a little bit, and then I'm thinking about getting back into it just because everything going on. And I thought about looking at the Xbox. So what's your take on the classic PlayStation versus Xbox? Like, do you think there's a stark difference, like on the consumer? Like, one consumer is looking for this, so they go to that, or is there a consumer difference on the products?
Definitely. I mean, so I had both the PS4 and the Xbox One at one point. I started with the Xbox One because I really wanted to get Rare Replay. I don't know if you remember that. It was like a collection of 30 games on the Xbox One. It came out pretty early. And it had like Banjo-Kazooie, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Battletoads, like all those classic N64.
I think I remember that.
Yeah, man, that's a classic 80s game on the NES. But I picked it up for that. And then, a few months went by, almost a year, I would say, and, like, there were no exclusives coming out that were speaking to me, right? Like, Xbox doesn't have the same level of exclusives, I think, that Sony has and that even Nintendo has. Like, Microsoft has Halo, they have Forza, they have Gears of War, but, like, I mean, that's about it, right? And then you look at Sony. Like I had my Xbox here. I was playing like the third party stuff like Batman and Tomb Raider, which were great. But then like my friends who had PlayStations were getting games like Uncharted and Last of Us and Horizon and now Spider-Man and God of War and like.
Yeah, I heard about that. I need to play that.
Oh, dude, it's so good. You have to, if you haven't played it yet, you have to. It's fun. Like it's deep. Like the old God of War games are so different than the new ones. So highly recommend that game. But yeah, like Xbox doesn't have the same exclusive party that Sony and Nintendo do. If you're looking for power though, like Xbox has always seemed to be the way to go. Like the Xbox Series X, it looks beautiful. I've seen a lot of reviews.
Yeah.
Looking pretty good.
So you're obviously, since you're a Nintendo person, you're leaning towards the Xbox Series.
No, actually, no, I'm not. I have a Switch, so I have that already, and then I'm probably going to get the PS5, to be honest. I do have a PS4, and I love it. So, like I said, I've played Spider-Man and God of War and Last of Us 2. I played that this year. That was really fun. But yeah, I mean, Xbox, it's a powerful console, and it's got a great service with that, what's it called? Xbox Games Pass?
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's like a Netflix subscription for games, which you get all of these classic games on Xbox. Their backwards compatibility is so cool. Like you can put an Xbox game into an Xbox One and play it. Like that makes no sense, right? No console does that. So like they make a lot of consumer positive moves, but then it's like as a gaming company, it's just like they just bought a whole bunch of developers about a year ago, I think, at E3. They announced acquiring. Oh man, I can't remember them now. But like they'll have, I can't remember like names very well, but like they acquired a whole bunch of studios, which is good. But these days, like games take 5-6 years to make.
But let's talk about, before all this, let's go old school. Let's go, dial tone, AOL, you got mail, all that. How were you on the PC games back in the day?
So I played games on PC a little bit. Like I played Diablo 1. I had that. I had like, and then I just split. I played a bit of Call of Duty on PC because like Call of Duty on GameCube wasn't very good. And then I'd play like I love the Tycoon games. Like I love Roller Coaster Tycoon and like.
Dude, you don't even get me started, man. I would do some crazy. I would do some crazy shit, man.
And then you got to kill the people in your park for fun. That was a fun game. I played that game a lot.
Oh, and I would mess around on Sims, and
yeah, those games were cool. But yeah, other than that, like PC, like in school, like we had like Math Circus, which I don't know if you have that in Florida. It's like a weird school game, but it was fun. It looked like it was made on MS Paint, very early 90s.
Yeah, I got into like Team Fortress Classic and Counter-Strike and...
Cool, okay. You got deep into PC gaming then.
Counter-Strike was the shit back in the day, man. Like
I know.
And then this old game, Tenaris. Does that ring a bell? It was a tank fighting game. Tenaris was the jam. So I would play that stuff. And, that's what kind of got me into it. And then when I got into, like, Super Nintendo and everything, like, did you look up Tenaris? It was an interesting history on that.
Yeah, that's weird. I haven't played too many tank games, but that's interesting. Okay, so what was the first console you had? I feel like I'm interviewing you now, but, like, when did you switch from PC to or, like, when did you buy a console? Was it PlayStation 1 or...
No, I had I think we had the Super Nintendo was the first one that I got. I can't remember if we had I think we may have had the regular Nintendo, but I know I used to have the Game Boys, the old school Game Boy, the original Game Boy.
Yep.
And then I think I had a run with the Game Boy Color, and I don't know if you remember Virtual Boy.
I remember it, but I never had one. I'm surprised Nintendo hasn't like put something out to let us play Virtual Boy again. So I'm like, let us play it. Why not? Like
that tennis game was the best one. Luigi's Mansion. Do you know that game?
Yeah, I've played Luigi's Mansion a few times.
Tell me about that game, because I don't think I played it and I heard about it.
Okay, yeah, Luigi's Mansion was a launch title for the GameCube, and like at this point in 2001, Nintendo was known for launching with a Mario game, right? You had Mario Bros. On NES, Super Mario World on SNES, and then Mario 64 on N64. All three games of those are masterpieces, in my opinion. But then when the GameCube came out, everyone was hoping for Mario 64 2, which is what it was teased as. Instead, we get this weird Ghostbusters game where Luigi has like a vacuum sucking up ghosts. And that was like the big launch title for GameCube, which was super weird at the time. And it was fairly well received. I mean, like at the time, again, people wanted a Mario game. They got a Luigi game. And it's just like this creepy game that it didn't get very great reviews because, again, everyone was expecting something amazing like Super Mario 64 2. But over time, Luigi's Mansion has just developed this huge following and everybody loves it now. It's not scary or anything. It's just like it's like kind of Scooby-Doo level of scares, or like Ghostbusters, where the ghosts are all very cartoony, like Casper. The story's short too. It's like maybe 6 hours, but it's not nearly as action-packed, or as like it's not as like an exploration game like Mario. Like it's over in 6 hours. It's a short story. There's like 5 or 6 bosses. It's pretty easy too. Like you can beat it probably. Like you're a gamer, you could probably beat the game in one sitting. Yeah, I mean, and you can't play it anywhere except the GameCube, which is interesting to me, is that the GameCube games, like all the exclusives, are pretty much only on GameCube. You can play, like Super Mario Sunshine just got ported to the Switch. The beauty of the GameCube is that it's the library is almost completely tied to the GameCube itself. You can't buy any of these games digitally. Of course, you can emulate them, like there's the Dolphin emulator. But Luigi's Mansion that's the only place you can play it, is on GameCube. They released like a 3DS port about a year or two ago, which not as good as the GameCube. The shadows don't pop quite as well, and you know it's 3DS, so it's underpowered. But yeah, I mean, I highly recommend. Where did you hear about Luigi's Mansion? Like, why haven't you played it yet? It's almost 19 years old. You've had time.
I was dusting off the old memory bank when I was prepping for this podcast. Iconic GameCube games, and that was one of the ones that popped up.
That's on everybody's list now, but like if you talk to people at the time, like Luigi's Mansion was probably not the favorite launch title. Like the favorite launch titles were there was the Star Wars game, Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2 Rogue Leader. Did you hear about that one?
Vaguely. I was more into like the Super Smash Bros. And
Yeah.
But no, I remember about the GameCube, because that's when, I think Nintendo really hit its stride, right?
Definitely. Yeah, no, the GameCube was when Nintendo was trying to compete directly with the other guys like Microsoft and Sony. There are some games, actually a lot of games on the GameCube that look better than the PS2 and Xbox games. This was like the generation where Nintendo was specifically trying to target gamers and like teenagers. They were trying to be cool again. They were trying to like not be as kiddie, which they lost a lot of gamers with the N64 when they were making these cartoony games. So yeah, they were making games that were M-rated and T games. They had games like Call of Duty, and like Resident Evil was on GameCube. And you're right, it was the last time they really tried to capture that audience. And that's why the console is so special to Mike and I, because, after the GameCube, there was the Wii, which was a bit of a joke. And then there was the Wii U, which was really bad. I had a Wii U, and like Smash Bros. Was fun, and Mario Kart was fun, but there was nothing on the Wii U worth like anything to anybody else. Like that console sold, like 20, not even 20 million units. But yeah, like it was just like they were just coming out with these really cool games that were not like, they were just different. And that's why we love the GameCube, is because it's the last time that Nintendo really tried to go hardcore gamer, and it failed like compared to Microsoft, Xbox, and PlayStation with Sony. But yeah, like over the years, I feel like that the community around GameCube has grown, even though the console's been dead since 2007. Like when we started the podcast, we were looking at prices for a lot of these games and consoles, and like it was affordable to be a GameCube collector. Like you could pick up a console for maybe $50, and a lot of the good games for under $50.
I see here that the opening weekend had $100 million of product in North America.
The console was off to a terrific start. Like they launched with Luigi's Mansion. They had that Star Wars game I told you about. They had Wave Race. They had a few sports games.
What's your thoughts on like Mario Kart? Do you remember playing that back in the day?
Yeah, my first Mario Kart memory was on N64, so Mario Kart 64. And I played that game almost every single day. I was in kindergarten. I'm sorry to make you feel older, but...
Oh, shit. I remember Mario Kart from the Super Nintendo, so that's...
Okay.
Yeah, I have that one too. I ended up picking that one up way later, but I didn't play that one until I was in college, I think.
I played it when it came out, so thank you for that.
I don't know, Super Mario Kart is so hard to go back to, though. Have you played that recently?
No, I played it enough times when I was a kid, enough for a lifetime.
But yeah, dude, Mario Kart is a special franchise. I have all the games on my shelf. I have, there's SNES, N64, GameCube, Wii U, Switch, and then Game Boy Advance, DS, 3DS. So there's like 9 Mario Kart games now, I think.
Yeah, what was special about the one on GameCube? Like, what made that one different? Or was there much difference?
Dude, the one on GameCube is the most different. So it feels the most different. Like Super Mario Kart and then N64 feels like a natural progression. But then N64 to GameCube felt like such a wild jump because you had 2 people in the cart. So like one character's controlling the wheel and the other character's throwing the items, and you could switch characters. You got different items depending on which characters you chose, which was completely new to Mario Kart. Like if you had Yoshi, you had eggs to throw. If you were Donkey Kong, you'd get extra like bigger bananas. So there was there was cart customization, which was new to the game. So And even the controls feel different. Like the game is a little bit tighter, snappier. But it's like the kart controls feel a lot tighter. Like it just feels like a more mechanical racing game. Whereas classic traditional Mario Kart just feels like you're drifting. The kart's kind of controlling itself a little bit. It feels more fluid.
Mm. So, like, why the GameCube? I know we mentioned this earlier, but of all the systems, give me the real reason, like, why that one?
Why that one? I mean, it's just such a weird console. Like it was the generation where Nintendo said, okay, we're not going to do cartridges anymore. And everyone was stoked because they thought they were going to get a Nintendo console that played DVDs, but they ended up switching to like these little tiny discs that you couldn't fit any space on anyway. And they released weird peripherals like this weird controller so you could play Phantasy Star Online on. And I don't know, it's just such a weird, like every game was different. Like they didn't release Super Mario 2. They released Mario Sunshine with this weird jetpack, and Luigi had a vacuum, and it was just like everything was so out of left field. Like it was just a weird console, and it was like a little purple lunchbox with a handle, and you know, it's so hard to explain, but like,
what's the craziest game that GameCube kind of delivered? Like the one that's like off the wall. Give me like an off the wall one.
Yeah, they made this weird game called Cubivore. I think only like 10,000 copies sold worldwide. It was a complete failure. But it's this weird game. It was ported from N64, so it looks like an N64 game. And is it rated M or T? Crap, I can't remember now. But it's like this weird M-rated game or T-rated game where you're just this cube, and you're moving up like through a life cycle chain, like you're a food chain, and it's like teaching Darwinism, like just evolution, and it's almost educational, but then it's also kind of weird and like creepy and sick. Like you eat things to grow, and like when you die, you end up playing as your children, and then they have to grow up. Like it's this kind of like Sims. But that was probably the weirdest game that we've found so far that Nintendo published and put out on the GameCube. That was just a complete failure. If you want to pick it up now, it's like $200 or $300, so it's super expensive. But that's the weirdest game that we've come across so far by far.
Yeah. So, is there anything about the GameCube that you think that people don't understand? Like, or is it like underappreciated, you think?
It's definitely underappreciated. I just think that too many people from the early 2000s just instantly think PS2. Like they like you said, like they had a PS1 and then they instantly just bought a PS2. The PS2 had the DVD player and it had like Grand Theft Auto. But I think people just don't understand how fun Nintendo's exclusives were on the GameCube. Like, yeah, we didn't have Grand Theft Auto and there wasn't any Ratchet and Clank or Final Fantasies. I mean, there were, but they were kind of weird. But just like the Nintendo games that Nintendo put out in the early 2000s stand up today. Like if you play a first-party Nintendo game from GameCube, like if you pick up today, if you went and bought Luigi's Mansion, I guarantee you're going to have a good time. And the graphics are going to look okay. Like if you have a CRT TV, I don't know if you do, they look really good there. But like if you pick up a PS2 game now, like an early PS2 game, like Summoner or something like that, like it doesn't age well. Like people don't remember the PS2 generation, I don't think, the same way GameCube fans did. And I think that that's lost on a lot of people, that it was just like a place and time console that if you played it back then, you're gonna love it now, and if you pick it up now, like you're gonna become a fan, I think. Like, and PS2 is a little bit harder because they also don't work as much, the PlayStation 2s. But GameCube's it's a good console to jump in on, and that's why we cover it, because we love it. So,
all right, man, go plug away, man.
Yeah, I'll say our little plug here. We like to start every episode with the same little jingle here, so here it goes. My name is Neil. I'm one half of the GameCube Was Cool podcast. I'm usually joined every week by my co-host Mike Lane. We have new episodes we're called the GameCube Was Cool podcast. We have new episodes every Thursday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and all the other podcast services. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We are at the GameCube Pod. We are the #1 GameCube podcast on the internet, and we're here to look back on all 555 North American GameCube games, 1 by 1, sometimes 12 by 12. We're about 26 episodes in when you listen to this podcast. We've covered classics such as Luigi's Mansion, Super Smash Bros. Melee, Animal Crossing, Super Mario Sunshine, and so many more. We're about 150 games in now. I think people are starting to get the sense that like we're here to stay, because you look on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and you see some podcasts that were dedicated to the GameCube, but they only lasted maybe 9 episodes or so, or they only cover like the main games. But Mike and I were dedicated to covering every single game. Like even if it's only for a few minutes, we're going to talk about a game, read the back of the case, talk a bit about what people thought of it at the time, if we think it looks good now. And nothing like that exists. So that's why we say we're the #1 GameCube podcast on the internet, because it's true.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Sean. I appreciate it too, and we'll have to have you come on our podcast sometime. If you eventually play some GameCube games, let us know, and we'll invite you out. All right, take care.
All right, later.
Bye.
All right, there you go. That was my interview with Neil from the GameCube Was Cool podcast. That was a really fun time. You know, I remember back in the day playing the GameCube, PS2, you know, vaguely PS3. I mean, good freaking times. Also, in the works is the next episode of Mr. Cynic, which will be on narcissism. Thanks to those who voted in the poll. The pros and cons of narcissism will be on the way soon. And there you go. That will do it for this episode of the Sensibly Cynical podcast. Please check us out on Twitter at Cynical Sensibly, Instagram Sensibly Cynical Pod, and you can check out our Facebook group. Of course, check us out on iTunes, and please subscribe, rate, and review us. I would really, 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 really appreciate it. That's it. Take care.